in 2005 is we discovered that the original actor that we had for the young male lead was probably not going to be available because of some other commitments. And luckily for us at that point, we were able to get at least a handshake commitment from Danny that he wanted to do the film, which was fantastic. We never doubted that that was not going to happen. But we were in this situation where you're trying to find a young male lead who is a great actor first and foremost, but also somebody who can be a believable boxer, which is a very specific kind of skill set. And we also needed to match him with his opponent. And we had a young African-American actor, Rex Alexander, who was very interested, who happened to be 6'3". So we needed to make sure that that there were all of these restraints within which we had to find our lead actor to match. You could probably talk about the process.
Well, it's a very complicated process because you're trying to make a creative decision, a business decision. You're trying to find someone that will help sell it in the foreign marketplace. Someone that could potentially help with the box office. And it's very, very tough. Like John said, there aren't a lot of people outside of a handful of people who could open a movie in North America. So when we found, when we met with Danny, and Danny read the script and called us back right away and said he wanted to do it, we knew that we had at least one name in the film. And then we, went out to try to find the next, young, hot star, and we met with a few of them. But when I met with them in the room and sat across from them, none of them felt like they were the part, And so it's a difficult thing is what do you do? Do you put someone in a film that is, might have made a couple of independent films and is known a little bit, but it's not right for the part, or do you keep looking? And so we chose to keep looking because in the end I thought, the film will live and die by its execution, and so I'd rather try to find someone that I thought was right. I have to try to have a strong film, and hopefully that film will find the audience abroad and find, get the right business sense. I mean, we just went through the process with Lie With Me. And yeah, Lie With Me is about sexuality, but I mean, we just came up with a film that sold quite a bit, and we didn't expect that in some way. And so, I felt confident that if we had Danny Glover, and if we had a great young actor, discover someone, and when I saw Ross Sutherland, who's brother to Kiefer and the son of Donald, he just felt right. He had the right feel. He was hungry. He had the right energy, and so we worked with him.
Tell the story about the casting tape. The casting tape.
Yes. On one of Ross's casting tapes, we'd seen him a couple of times, and then he wanted to send us another tape. There was a very recognizable voice in the background. It was sort of an older voice, and about 5 minutes into it, we realized it was his dad that was reading lines with him. So
I wanted to buy Volvos.
DVD extras.
So let's bank at the Royal Bank. Let's just move away from casting for a few minutes, and so we're at the point where we're marching towards production. And for what reason was a decision made that there's going to be one producer who's Toronto-based and one producer that's Halifax-based?
Because we've been developing the script in Halifax, and we were working with Chaz, who was essentially a first-time feature film producer, as we were moving towards production, the original budget estimate had gone up quite significantly. And generally, if you develop a script in a regional office or in a specific office of Telefilm, you're expected to go back there with your production application. We were going to the national level, and I guess you guys could maybe talk a little bit about the difference between the regional application and the national application. And because of our experience, Clement and I were clearly needed to be the lead producers. So at that point, what we did is we switched our office of application from Nova Scotia, where we were developing it, to the Toronto office. So in essence, it's sort of a true-to-life Canadian co-production because all of our development had happened in Halifax, and that seemed right, given that that's where we were finding the story, and that's where, you know, a lot of the sort of specificity of the story came out of. But when it came to production, most of the financing was going to be generated from this end, so it made much more business sense.
So what was the nature of your discussions with Ralph and the Toronto office, or the Toronto office, in terms of the financing options?
We always wanted to make the film as essentially a Canadian production as opposed to a co-production. It was the biggest budget that we've ever done, and as a result of that, we knew that it was going to be very difficult to raise essentially $5 million in the Canadian landscape. That's about probably as high as you can go, I think, to try to hold on to all Canadian rights.
All world rights?
All world rights, I mean, yeah.
Well, yeah, it depends. It depends how rich the
It's cast dependent to it. and it is true, because you're constantly, I mean, you know, these are our two principal financiers of the film that we're sitting here with, and you're going into discussions on what you feel the value of the film is, and therefore what the budget should be, for probably, you know, 2 to 3 months before you actually make your telefilm application. What you're also doing is you're testing out the value for it on Canadian paid television. We've got pre-sales made to TMN and Movie Central, and luckily CBC also saw the value of the script, I think because it was such an inherently Canadian story. So we were able to pre-sell the film to CBC, which in a way also put the value up for the film. But what was great is that by not doing or not choosing to do it as a co-production, we were able to move fairly quickly forward. I know a few people have come up to me and said, how you made 2 films in 2 years? You know, how did you manage to do that? But this film's been in development since 2001. And I think that, you know, the perception of it, because Lie With Me was out last year, is that we just went right into another. But, you know, at any given moment, we have about 5 or 6 projects that are in various stages of development.
When you were at the IFP, so we just want to make sure everyone realizes the timeline. So it's now the fall of 2004.
That's right.
The script at this point is in pretty good shape.
Final draft stage.
Final draft stage. And you're talking to, among other people, some American financiers. Did anybody suggest to you, you know, give me the video rights for $500,000 and I'll make your life easier?
Well, we were in touch with New Line, actually, which indirectly came out of that. They weren't actually at the IFB, but they had caught wind of the project, and they were calling us, I think, from early 2005, wanting to see the script, wanting to see the package. At that point, they made an offer to us to put the film into their development stream, but that's a little bit of a risk, because we had gotten our official word from Telefilm, I think, in spring of 2005. Shortly after that is when we had the offer from New Line, but you never know how long that kind of a deal is going to take for you to get approval within an American, you know, mini-major structure, because you could be in development hell for 4 years and then at the end of it, you know, not be any further ahead. We knew we had the money. We knew that we could sort of scrape together the remaining, you know, we were looking, I think we had a gap of about $500,000. And we decided that we would complete the film and then, you know, let them see it at the end. And that's something that's fairly rare. I don't think, you know, American studios come knocking that frequently, but that was something that came out of IFP.
So you already have sort of enhanced value in the
Exactly.
world market already.
Exactly. And once we made the official...
And retain the rights.
Yeah, and we have the rights to the U.S. Well, actually, Seville has the rights to sell.
Well, yeah, that's something we could talk about just in terms of how we structured that.
Yeah.
Another time if you guys want.